welcome. First of all, welcome. This is Unsolicited Perspectives. I'm Bruce Anthony, your host, here to lead the conversation in important events and topics that are shaping today's society. Join the conversation and follow us wherever you get your audio podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch our video podcast. Rate, review, like, comment, share. Share with your friends, share with your family. Hell, even share with your enemies. On today's episode, it's part 2 of my interview with Keeper Katherine Whitney, the author of Helplessness, the mental health challenges brothers experience once we learn our sisters have been sexually abused by our parents. Once again, parents out there, want to give parental discretion. This is strong, mature subject matter. Kids probably shouldn't be in the room listening to this. But that's enough of this intro. Let's get to part 2 of this incredible interview. Let's go to your wedding. So you said you have regret for bringing them back in, but you said you fixed it.
Well, in that, you really can't fix these things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't go back and fix something like that. What you can do is try to make things better, but you can't.
Yeah.
The damage has been done.
Mm-hmm.
So shortly after the wedding, I had gone to my wife and told her, I said, look, I got to go back to the house this weekend. And she asked me, is everything okay? And I said, it will be. So I go back to the house, and I have determined one of two things was about to happen. One of the two of us was not going to survive the weekend. And I was good with it if it was me. I was good.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back to the house. There's an upstairs. There are 2 bedrooms upstairs. It's my mom and his, because my mom had him at the house. The bedroom was upstairs. And the one that I had left prior to, after getting married, was still there. So I went back there and I paced around in that bedroom for 2 hours waiting to hear him come out the bedroom. I had determined that I was going to kill him. And what's crazy, Bruce, is I did not tell anybody. I didn't tell my fiance what I was about to do. I didn't tell my brothers. I told no one. And in looking back at it, if I had killed him, I would have made the situation worse for my sisters emotionally, because they really would have blamed themselves. They would have said, you know what? I shouldn't have said anything, because now my brother's in jail for first-degree murder, or he's been killed.
Yeah, it would have destroyed a lot of lives.
Yeah.
It would have destroyed a lot of lives. It would have destroyed your sisters,
and that's
his life, your life.
Yeah, that's the challenge for sisters. The reason why they don't tell their brothers is because they know their brothers at some point is probably one of them is going to rise up and do something, and it's not going to be pretty. These are not kids in elementary school. These are grown men. They play for life or death.
Yeah.
So I went to the house and I'm sweating. I am shivering. I'm so cold. I am nervous. I'm scared of knowing what I have to do. Outside my bedroom door is a long hallway, but there's a 3.5-foot wall that overlooks the spiral staircase. And I had determined that, okay, when he comes out of the bedroom, I'm going to meet him in the hall. But the one place I cannot be is my back against that short wall. Cannot be there, because all he has to do is push, and I'm tumbling over.
And what you're how old at this time? If it's 86, you're almost 30 years old.
Oh no, I'm 26.
26, and he is how old?
45.
Okay.
He's 6'6", 250 pounds, and he wore this huge afro that put him at about 7 feet tall. I'm 5'8", 145 pounds. Yeah. And that's just another thing. I have to deal with the weight and the size of this guy. He
Yeah.
outweighs me by 100 pounds. I cannot look over his shoulder. That's how much bigger than me he was. And so, as people was like I said earlier, oh, I would have. No. You got to think about some things first.
Yeah, you say
You got the
6'6", 250.
calculations
I
to
mean,
make first.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a big man.
yeah. He's a mountain of a man. So, like I said, that's noise. That's all I'm hearing.
Hmm.
So I hear the bedroom door open. And I said to myself, okay, it's time. The instrument of his death was already in my bedroom. It was leaning against my bedroom door jamb. It was my favorite baseball bat. I hit many home runs at Fox Hills Park with that bat. I knew how to hit that bat. It was like it was made for my hands. He comes out the bedroom, and I put my hand on the knob of the bat. And then I take it off and say, no, now it's not now. So he comes out of the bedroom. And I opened the door and I look and I said, okay, you can turn back if you want to. But I decided to step out anyway. He starts coming down the hall and I meet him halfway. God damn, if my back is not against that short wall, one place I am not supposed to be. I'm supposed
Right.
to be on the other side of the wall of the hallway where the wall it's glass because it overlooks a patio, but I'm not going to drop 15 feet.
Hmm.
And I realize I am standing with my back against the short wall. Bruce, I am scared.
Hmm.
If I meet him at my door is at the landing of the stairs. So all he has to do is push, and I go tumbling down the stairs backwards, and I snap my neck.
Hmm.
But I had already
Hmm.
decided my life was forfeit. I was ready to give it up for my sisters. It's done as long as he is out of this house for good. So as I'm approaching him, he says, "Hey," and I just look. And we get closer and closer, and I see his face just start to drop from, and we meet in the middle.
Hmm.
My face is in his chest. That's how much bigger than me he was.
Hmm.
And as far as I'm concerned, he's blocking out all the light at this point. We are
Hmm.
literally face to chest. And I look up at him and I say, "You have 24 hours to leave this house because if you are still here by this time tomorrow, you will be dead because I will have killed you." I turned around and walked away. And I hear footsteps behind me. And I'm like, damn, okay. I go into the bedroom and I close the door, but I still hear footsteps, but they're fading. He was walking back the other way. I'm like, okay. I hear the door close. I walk out of the bedroom, go downstairs, get into my little Fiat X19 and drive over to the house. And my wife, she says, "Is everything okay?" And I said, "I think so, because I know I have to go back tomorrow to double check. I
Yeah.
have to make sure the job is done." So the morning comes around and I get back in the car and I drive back over and I take my bat with me and walk up to the front of the house and I decide to leave the bat outside, resting against the door jamb. Now, Bruce, I'm expecting to walk in the house and there's a gun pointed at me. Like, okay, because if he kills me, he's going to jail for murder. He's out the
Mm-hmm.
house.
Mm-hmm.
If I get him, he's dead. I'm going to jail for murder, but at least he's out the house.
It's
So,
out the
like you
house.
said
Yeah.
earlier, I made the situation worse for my sisters emotionally, but
Hmm.
it had to be done. So I walk in the house. There's not a sound. I walk upstairs. I don't see anyone or hear anything. I walk into the kitchen. Don't see anyone or hear anything, but I do hear some music coming out the back room. We had a makeshift studio back there, and I walked back there. My younger brother's back there, and I said, "Is anyone in the house?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, where'd he go?" He said, "He left this morning," and that was the end of him that day.
That day.
He and I, how the story ends is pretty dramatic. 2019, I decide to, and all of this and more is in the book. You know, this is a brother's story. It's not a sister's story. One of my sisters, you know, who I was told that I want to write the book, and they said, "You must write the book. It's not my story. It's not a girl story. It's a boy's story. People need to know what brothers go through." So 2019, Bruce, I decide, okay, let me see if this fool has a Facebook page. Because what sexual predator is going to have a Facebook page?
Now, from 1986, when you told him to leave the house, to 2019, was there any contact?
No. But every
No.
now and then
Okay.
we wanted to see if he was still around. So we would,
Okay.
you know, every now and then someone would say, you know, "I saw so and so, and or I saw him over here." We're like, "Okay, cool, all right, fine." But I knew my sisters needed some closure
Mm-hmm.
because things still weren't settling with me, and was settling well with me. And so I looked on Facebook, and damn, he had a Facebook page, and he decided to make a public post about his wife, who had passed away in December. They had the funeral, but he wanted to have a going home party.
Okay.
So he stayed, turns out he stayed 10 minutes from us, from where
Hmm.
I live right now. He's
Mm.
minutes away. So he decided to have this going home party at a church in Van Nuys. And I'm looking at the post, and he's just inviting people to come. So I figured, oh, shit, he just invited me.
That's not Keeper. That is not what he did.
Yes, he
That
did.
is not what he did.
As far as I'm concerned, it's Providence.
Okay.
Yes, you put out a public post, you invite people, you invited me to come. I am going.
Okay.
I
All
told my
right.
older brother, I said, "You coming with me because I am going." He will see me
Mm-hmm.
today, will see me on that day. Talked my older brother into coming. In fact, one of my sisters said, "You need to go with him because he going to put hands on that man." I said, "I'm not putting hands on anybody, but I understand what y'all saying." Okay. So we go to the church, and I'm just going to make this really quick. We get to the church; it's packed with black people. This church in Van Nuys has got this big, large white pastor, and he's like the first time he's had this many black people in his church in his life. He's just so thrilled. He's just walking around like, "Oh, this is great! This is great!" He stops at this one person at the back of the room, and he said, "Isn't this spectacular? This is wonderful! Can you just feel the love in this church?" And I look up at him and I said, "Yeah, I feel the love." Of all the people he could ask, he's
Mm-hmm.
asking me. He talked to no one else. So I'm thinking, God talking. God sent me here to handle this,
Hmm.
give my sisters closure. So they had their service. It's really nice. A lot of nice words about the woman who passed away, a lot of her family and kids and grandkids. And I'm back there thinking, okay, how many of these kids did he get to? So after the church is over, after the service is over, I get up and I get in the receiving line. He's sitting in a metal folding chair at the front, greeting everyone. I step in front of him. Now the roles have been reversed from that moment in the hallway where he's looking down at me and I'm looking up at him. Now he is looking
Mm-hmm.
up at me and I'm looking down at him. And I say, blah, da, 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 I say his name. Your day of reckoning has finally arrived. You will never have a you will never have a restful day in your life. I take over the church for 90 minutes.
Mm.
He is mine for 90 minutes. And what happened in that church when I took over, You couldn't have written it in Hollywood. You'd say it never would ever happen like this. But
Mm.
as me and my brother were finally leaving, and I don't know why I did this, but it was my Seeley moment in The Color Purple. I spun around and pointed at him and said, "Your day is over." And I'm just going over and on and on and on and on and on. And we turn around and we walk out the church. And I leave him standing there. We're driving out of the parking lot. And I pull onto a street called Orion. And all I hear is, "Hey." I look at my older brother. I said, "Did you hear that?" He said, "Yeah." "Someone calling us?" "I don't think so." So I'm still driving, but I'm driving slow. We're so thrilled about what we just did for our sisters.
Hmm.
"Hey." I stop. This young woman, about 21 years old, she's in a uh, very tight, nice looking dress. She's running across the grass. She hits the sidewalk. Clack, 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 clack. Runs onto the asphalt street. Clack, 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 clack. And she says, "I heard what you said in there. I need to talk to you." I said, "Okay." She said, "The woman who passed away was my grandmother. I
Mm.
need to talk to you about something." Gave her my cell number. Said, "Call anytime." After she walked away, I looked at my older brother. He got to her, didn't he? I think he did. So what ends up happening, Bruce, when people are silent who know? Aunts, uncles who passed the buck, grandparents who passed the buck, people we went to who passed the buck. You end up becoming part of that spider's protective detail. He's sitting in the middle of this web and he's feeding on everyone who knows and who did nothing. You are now part of the story in a way you should never have ever been. You know what
Mm.
happened and you remained silent. For my aunts, uncles, they were hoping we were going to be rich. And as more people knew, they did nothing. You're not protecting yourself. You ultimately are protecting the person who molested the children. And it
Yeah.
happens all the time. In the United States, it is reported that 165 children a day are sexually abused. Those are the ones reported. Last night, around 1 o'clock, someone walked into some little kid's bedroom and had their way with them. Tonight, it's going to happen again. And tomorrow night, it will repeat itself. And there are those people who know and who will remain silent. There's too much at risk here to remain silent and to keep brothers out of a conversation that they should be a part of, especially when we are blamed for not doing anything. You want us to not be a part of the conversation, but then we're blamed for not doing anything. Granted, it took me a long time, but what ends up happening is brothers and sisters can end up becoming enemies when they should be allies in
Yeah.
the conversation. We should be able to come to each other and help each other and explain what's going on from the time it happens. But like I said, I understand why my sister said what she said to us. She's trying to protect herself, which she needed to do, and she needed to protect my sisters. But the brothers and our emotions can't be shunted to the side. We are not travelers in trauma uh, who are just expected to just cope with it. We can't. We need
Yeah.
someone to talk to. There needs to be systems and tools in place for brothers, and that's ultimately what this 3 book series is about. Hopefulness, I get into those people, places, and things, those anchors that help pull me out. Turns out what helped pull
Hmm.
me out in the end was my sisters. 45 years of not
Mm.
them, I just decided I have got to talk. And they were open
Yeah.
to it. And happiness is about my life right now. Do I still struggle with the trauma? Do things still trigger? Yeah. but I'm in a much better place. And ultimately, Bruce, for me, it boils down to this. There was a time where I thought our family's message was to bring music to the world. That's not what I think anymore. I think we were put on this planet, the 10 of us, to go through this so that our experience can be used to educate, to heal, to inform. It crosses racial lines, it crosses gender lines, it crosses education, it crosses politics, it crosses law enforcement, it crosses clinical. You can take a look at what we went through and get a very deep dive into what really happens with families. And you can take an even deeper dive into what really happens with brothers.
I so I have two final questions. One question is personal, but we've been getting really personal. When you decided to write the book and tell the story that for so long your sisters wanted to not discuss, how did the family handle it?
Man, in 2013, I went to a conference in San Diego put on by the great motivational speaker and author Lisa Nichols. She was putting on a conference, and part of the conference was how to write a book in 20 minutes. At that time, I was really big in the industry of network marketing, direct sales, kind of like Amway, Mary Kay, Avon, all that kind of stuff. I was very big in that. And I knew the book I wanted to write was about that, but I was being emotionally pulled to write
To write your
Helplessness.
story. Yeah.
And yet I knew I could not write this book without talking to my sisters.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't write it and feel good about it. Sure, I could write it, but I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
feel good about at least letting them know
Right.
that I'm writing about it because it is my story and they can write their own story. But what I ended up doing, my second sister, I called her and said, look, I want to talk to you about something that I want to do. This was after a month of picking up the phone and then putting it down because the damn thing was too heavy. I did not want to talk. I'd pick up the phone and I'd say, you know what? I got something to do right now more important. I need to go watch paint dry. I need to go.
Anything to avoid that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, we've all been in those moments. But I eventually picked up the phone and I called her and said, look, I need to talk to you about something I want to write. And she said, come on over. Got to her house and we're standing outside in front of her garage and I'm in tears saying how I want to write this book from a brother's perspective, but I want you to know that I am not writing this to throw anyone under the bus or to point fingers, but I want to tell people what's going on and how our story doesn't have to end in tragedy. It could be used as a healing tool. That's my thing. Our family story does not have to end in tragedy, and how it doesn't end in tragedy is being put to good use to help other children, other families, other brothers and sisters heal. And so I'm in tears, Bruce. I am an absolute mess. And she looks at me and puts her hand on my shoulder. It's okay. You should write this book. It was the last thing I was expecting. She said, you should write this book. It's not my story. It's not this girl's story. It's your story. I said, are you sure? She said, yes. I called my oldest sister, the one who said, you can't talk about it. If the second sister's phone weighed 1,000 pounds, hers weighed a ton. I was expecting her to say, hell no. She said, yeah. We haven't even talked about it. She said, you need to
Yeah.
write it. I ended up speaking to the three sisters that contribute to the book. They're like, yes. One sister, the twin, who that he got pregnant, she said, after reading the book, she said, I had no idea you boys were carrying all this trauma. I thought you boys didn't talk about it because you didn't care.
Mm.
No idea you guys have been dealing with this. I said, we
Mm-hmm.
didn't talk about it because you said we couldn't. So after going to the conference in San Diego, I was called up stage to talk about it. I finally got them to say, call on me. I got a book idea. They called me up and I
Mm-hmm.
told people about it. The room was silent, some 600 people. It just, you could hear a pin hit carpet. It was that silent. I went back to my desk and I was swarmed by women who said, I had
Mm.
no idea this is what my brother was going through. I had no idea my brother's became.
Mm.
I had no idea. We need to hear your story. You need to share this with brothers. My brother needs to read this book. My brother needs to know he's not alone. It was just too much.
Mm.
So I got up out of my seat, went to the double doors, and I was out in the hall. 5 seconds later, the doors burst open and more women surrounded me, telling me about their brothers. But the three that really stood out were the women who said their brothers took their lives once they learned that their
Mm.
sisters had been sexually abused, and they took their lives out of guilt and shame because they weren't there to protect them,
Mm.
because we couldn't have the conversation. So there's a lot here to unpack with this particular conversation you and I are having, and I gotta say, thanks for giving me the time, because this is not an easy topic for men to talk about.
No, it isn't.
And a lot of it's just due to what we have done, not you and I, but what we as a gender have done to women.
Mm.
And there's a
Mm.
lot of people carrying stuff I don't want anyone to know, so I don't want to talk about it. But I've spoken to so many men who have said, you need to talk about this. We need to have some place to go. We need to learn more about your book. It is, I think it's a brave thing that you are doing, having me on here. I really do. Because there's going to be some pushback. And one of the reasons why I brought up why I was sexually abused is oftentimes I start telling women about the story, they say, no, you can't talk about it. I'm like, how come I
Mm-hmm.
can't talk about it? I'm a brother. It's my story. I said, it didn't happen to you. I said, it did happen to me. It may not have happened in the way that it happened to my sisters, but it happened to me. And then I said, oh, by the way, 6 years before my sisters were sexually abused, my babysitter sexually abused me almost daily for 6 months. And to a woman, they said, oh, I didn't know. Oh, so you do understand. Yeah, I understand. Because it's not just girls who get sexual abuse. 1 in 6 sexual abuse victims are boys. So that narrative that is primarily being controlled by women, and it should be, is one that can be expanded to include brothers and men who want to be allies, who want to help, who want to assist women, and also help women understand that we go through these things too. Just society has really not created the space for men to just be emotional like we should. And I'm like, I don't care, because once I started talking about this, the shackles of shame and guilt just really started to fall away. It's liberating to talk to someone about this. It really is.
Yeah.
You know, you are locked down emotionally when you don't talk about it, especially if you're a man. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Okay, Keeper. So I kind of lied to you. I said I had two final questions, but I actually got two more questions. And then, and I know I'm taking up a lot of your time, but I think these two questions are very, very important in the context of everything that's going on. So you get the permission to write the book from your two sisters. No, from two of the sisters. After the book is completed, you have a large family. Now that everything is out and open and you're talking about it, because you have it in your twin that got impregnated by your stepfather comes to you and says, well, I didn't know that you were feeling this way. I thought you guys didn't talk about it because you just didn't care. So now with the book being written and everything out in the open, how is the dynamic between the entire family?
Well, Bruce, that's okay. Um, so as you mentioned, the family's large, 10. My mom, my stepdad, 4 boys, 4 girls. And when you have a situation like this, especially with victims and what I call thrivers and survivors, you may be seeing the same thing. You may be a part of the same thing, but because everyone's a different personality, you are embracing, you are taking it all in, you are processing it in different ways. And so, with that being said, as it relates to my mother, very few of us have conversations with her. A couple of my siblings do because of her age, but I don't. You know, my stepdad, obviously, we don't have any conversation, and a lot of that came out of what I did at the church in Van Nuys, seeking that closure or some degree of closure with my sister. So there's no conversation there to be had, which is to the good. But as it relates to my siblings, I have a great relationship with my older brother. Um, and so we are in communication all the time. My 2 youngest brothers, uh, there's not much conversation there. My youngest of the 4 boys, 3 brothers, I should say, struggles with this in a way that is more on the dark side of things, where blame is being dropped at the feet of his siblings for what happened. Even his sisters, blaming them as 5-year-olds for,
Jesus.
you know, accusing them of seducing at 5 years old their stepfather. And so it's just how we're all trying to process it, and we all do the best we can, is how I look at it. Now with my sisters, the 3 sisters that contribute to the book, we have a great relationship. We have a great relationship. And that was born out of me willing to come forward. There's a book, and I don't remember who the author is, called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And that's really what you have to do. You have to feel the fear. You have to know it's there. You have to understand that it's going to be difficult, trying emotionally. You don't want to do it. But if you want a relationship with anyone that's important to you, especially your siblings, you must step in to that space. And that's what I did. And the great part is me doing what I did at that church in Van Nuys, seeking closure for them. So
Hmm.
let's see. Oh, yeah, my older half brother up in Portland. He's a part of all this. We didn't even talk about him, but he's very much a part of all this because he was aware of some things and didn't do some things. And we all had to have an understanding of his mindset in all this, because we talked very early on, Bruce, that the noise, the people who say I would have done this and I could have
Right.
done this,
Right.
it's not there. So relationships, they are good, man. They are good, and I
Okay.
never in my life would have imagined that we would be in this place as siblings. It was unfathomable to me after all the rubble on the floor in '77.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So with your younger brother, was his relationship with your stepfather really close? Is that part of the reason why he is putting the blame on his siblings?
No, no, and that's a good question. And you can ask me as many questions as you want. Everyone thinks they have a number of questions they want to ask me until we get into this, and then it's like, oh
I
shit,
know.
oh
Yeah,
man,
I said at the top, I said 2, then I said 2 more, and I asked 1, asked another one, and that's still not the final question that
yeah,
I have on here, but
it's all good. It's
these
all good.
nuggets that you're yeah, these nuggets that you say, I'm like, "Okay, I kinda wanna find out, I wanna go down this road." So
Yeah, because it's important, because we need to just assume other people are going through the same thing in their family. There's this
Exactly.
division. And so, we are touching on some important things. And, it's all good. We are here to educate and here to explain and here to hopefully shed some light. And at the same time, maybe give people some ideas on how they might be able to do it. But about my younger brother, um, no, he wasn't particularly close. I think he looked up to my stepdad in a way, but it's odd because he was so close to my sisters. And none of us have been able to figure out what this is all about, where this is coming from. And so, we give the space to do what you need to do, even though for some of us at times, it's very uncomfortable when he communicates with us, but we're not
Mm.
allowed to communicate with him. And just some of the stuff that we are introduced to thought wise, it's just wow. So I don't know. We just wish him the best and hope everything works out okay for him.
Now, your half brother, how is this your half brother? Is it
Okay.
did your mom and your stepdad ever have children together?
My mom and my biological father, she has all 8 kids with him, but he was
Hmm.
married prior to her.
Okay.
So
So this is
my
an older
father,
brother.
correct, yeah, by four
Okay.
years, yeah, yeah. Uh,
And
it is great.
so you said he knew a little bit about what was going on?
Yeah,
When did that come out? Did that come out before or after the book?
it came out during the writing of the book.
Ah,
So
okay.
Bruce, every time I thought I was going to be close to finishing a new revelation,
Mm,
would present itself, and it's like, well, I cannot not bring that in order for people to fully understand what we have been dealing with.
mhm,
So it came out during the writing of the book, and my sister, who I went and visited before I went over to San Diego, we went up to Portland to visit because I just needed some background information and understanding his thought process. And we ended up having a conversation around 4:30 in the morning, and it was just one of those things. I'm not laying blame, you
mhm.
know, but it was challenging to hear, and yet we are all victims in this. What he was dealing with as related to this, none of us got away clean,
So I
and
want people to read the book, but what was it that he was dealing with? Because you said you went up there to
we
Portland to
had
get
not
background
seen
information.
him. We had not seen
Mhm.
him for maybe 15 years.
Okay.
And he, like my grandmother, the grandmother that he and I share, who knew about it and did not say anything, were afraid that if they had said something, we would no longer communicate with them. They would lose us forever.
Oh.
My grandmother, on my dad's side, that was her thing when she and I talked. She said, I hadn't seen you kids in over 20 years, and I did not want to lose you. So it's really odd because in doing that, what are you eventually accomplishing? You are knowing that your grandchildren are being molested, your brothers and sisters are being molested, and you're not doing anything. And it's continuing when you could have stopped. And that goes back to something that we said earlier, how people who know say nothing for whatever reason, these being selfish at the end of the day, but you leave the children to to the whims of the predator. They
Yeah.
still can't find any help. And you really have to think through this as a person who's been victimized, how you choose those people who you allow let back in, and in what ways and in what levels. So uh, his guilt, his shame, rivals ours. You
Yeah.
know, so like I said, I had my woulda, coulda, shoulda time. So
Hmm.
it's his relationship. My relationship with him is more important than not having it. So we figured out a way, and it was with the blessing of our sisters, who absolutely love him to this day.
That's beautiful. Okay. So I've dug into your family so much and asked such personal questions, and I'm so grateful that you've been so open and candid with me in this conversation. So real talk this time. I only have one final question. This is truly the final question, and that is, what can people do that were that are in your situation to
Hmm.
get help? Because the reason you said you wrote this book is because there was nothing out there to help brothers dealing with this. So, what is some things that people can look at or look for as far as help dealing with this?
That's a good question. It's interesting that you asked, because earlier this week I've been approached by a publisher and see if I'd be willing
Mm,
to write something more in depth about this process. Uh, Obviously, the answers would need a much larger forum for what we're doing here. But the first thing anyone needs to do is to accept and admit, particularly brothers, that you are a victim.
mm,
Just because you aren't a direct victim doesn't mean you aren't a victim. You have to accept that. And that was so hard for me to do.
mhm,
Even when I was molested by our babysitter for as long as we were, first of all, I had no idea that I was a victim. And then after the situation with my sisters, I didn't view myself as a victim. What brought it out was a conversation with my wife. We were in bed talking, and I was just sharing with her, look, this is what I'm thinking about this is what I'm thinking about that. And she looks at me and she says, you're a victim. And I say,
mm,
no, I'm not. And she says, yes, you are. Look at you. You are a mess. You're sweating. You're shaking. You are an absolute mess. And I'm like, no, no, no. I'm not a victim. I'm just sharing with you what's going on. And she says, no, all of you boys are victims. How can you not see that? And it wasn't until that moment that it hit me. And I'm having this conversation with her in bed, and I'm just fighting it, Bruce. I'm saying, no, 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 because I'm a man, right? I'm a black man. Are
mhm,
you kidding me? No, no. What are you
mm.
talking about? You have no idea what I've been through, blah, 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 blah. And the next thing you know, I'm in tears. Like, wow. So once I admitted and then accepted, that's the beginning of the healing right there. Then you need to understand that what has happened to you is not surface in any way, it is deep. So it becomes part of your DNA. And like DNA, which is self replicating, it can replicate in areas you have no idea. It will replicate in your thought process, not on how you think about yourself and your family and your children, but in your sisters, but how you process thoughts about work, how you process about education. All of this is laying over all of those ideas. How you communicate with women is directly related to this.
Mhm,
So, if you're going to have children and you've got a little girl, you need to understand what is inside you from a knowledge standpoint, emotional standpoint. Because I would tell you this: when my little boy was born, we have gone through three different last names. My original last name with my dad is Leary. Then my mom
mhm,
married my stepdaddy. And it was changed to Parent. And then with my wife, and I kept her last name, so we went Katran Parent, because I wanted
mhm,
everyone to have the same last name. And then one day I realized Whenever I saw my son's last name and I saw the name parent, and this was a wake up call unlike any other. Whenever I saw my son's name on a report card, doctor's note or something, and I saw the name parent, I would get angry at the name parent.
Mm.
And I realized, oh, I am throwing this negative energy on my little boy. He's innocent, done nothing. And that's just part of the whole DNA process. You have to understand it is there. So the next step is the hardest step. You got to talk to somebody. You must seek out at least one person, someone who's not going to judge you, who will just keep it shut, just let you talk. That is
Just
it.
listen.
Just listen. You know, it's okay to have a question, but that helps pull things out of you, that help you say what you need to say, because you're going to fight all along the way. Does it mean that you are clear of all the pain, of all the trauma, because you've spoken to one person? Hell no. It means you are on the road to recovery. And once I did that, it was liberating. It was like shackles just started pouring off. They just started dropping to the floor. And I became more and more confident to speak up and speak out loudly about it. And that's part of it. You don't want people to know what you've done or what you've seen or what you've heard. But any victim will tell you it is not until you are willing and able to speak out, step in your space, own your space. Because other than that, anything short of that, you are still under the control emotionally and mentally of that predator. That's the only superpower they have, is your silence. And once you break through the silence, they become small. And now they are afraid. But as I said, it's the hardest part for anybody. And once you do that, you try to talk more and more and more about it. That those were the key things for me and my brothers: admitting, understanding that it is a part of us; it will never go away. We could put it in a little box, set it off to the side, as best we can. But like we talked about earlier, there are songs, people, places, and things, moments, memories, movies, that's just going to bring it back. But you have a better sense of who you are, so you can control it a lot better. And then talking about it. Because at the end of the day, brothers and sisters, women and men, we all want the same things. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to be understood. We want to heal. And we want to be able to get to a place of empowerment where we can move positively every day in our life, so that we can be better. Because when brothers are told it didn't happen to us, what we hear is, we don't matter. Our voices don't matter. Our trauma doesn't matter. It does matter. And it matters not only for brothers, but it also matters for the relationships between the brothers and sisters. Because once my sister said, I want to hear what you have to say, I want to read what you've written, that's when they understood who their brothers are, who we were, and the men that we have become.
Keeper, I want to thank you for telling this story, this important message. I'm in the description section is all of your information, but give a quick plug to not only helplessness, but also hopefulness and happiness. Where they can get your information, where they can find you. It'll all be in the description section in both the audio and video platforms, but from your mouth, let the audience know.
Well, you can get all of that, and I appreciate you plugging. You
Yeah,
know,
you got a plug.
I know there was going to be a lot of dialogue back and forth. It just seemed as though there's just so much in here, right?
Right. Yeah.
People can go to my website, keepercatran-whitney.com, and purchase the book. You will see audio podcasts. You'll see video podcasts. One of the best episodes is a 2 hour conversation between me and my older brother and the sister who was raped. It was the first time we ever talked about it.
Mm.
I said, look, you guys, we need to let people know what this is about. That was a conversation and a half for 2 hours. And so if you want to see brothers and sisters actually talk about it, and it ended up so beautifully, it ended up so good. There's a 16-part podcast there. There's just so much there. The book Helplessness is also, you can also get on Amazon. Hopefulness is being written, as I said earlier. It is, you got to find hope
Yeah.
in order for you to come out of these things. Oftentimes people will tell you love is the greatest 4-letter word. And I say love is the second greatest 4-letter word. Hope is the number one word, because
Hmm.
love predisposes that you have hope, that you can even get there. If you
Mm.
don't have hope, you really aren't going anywhere. So it's about hope.
Yeah.
If you have hope, then you can hope for love. You can experience love. So hopefulness, people, places, and things that help anchor me and pull me back, so that
Hmm.
Midnight Train to Georgia is not not the only
It's not
song
a
on
sad
my
song
mind.
anymore. Right.
Well, it's a sad song, but it's got, it's been tempered a bit. And happiness
Okay.
is about where I'm at now.
Hmm.
They're not nearly as dense, hopefulness and happiness, as helplessness is. That is a dense read, not only
Yeah.
information wise, but page wise. But it's designed to let you know you can go from helplessness to hopefulness to happiness. A lot of it's going to be your choice. A lot of it's going to be your willingness to find people to talk to, because you can't come out of it unless you talk to someone. And it is
Yeah.
incredibly liberating. So you can get it there. Like I said, keeperkatranwhitney.com. And, Bruce is kind enough to share some additional information. You can reach out to him. He knows how to get to me.
Yes, I do. And like I said, all that stuff will be in the description section. Will be on the website. So go check out Keeper. Go get the book. Keeper, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate your kindness and openness to share your story today.
I appreciate it. My job is to, from this point on, is to help children. You know,
Yeah,
that's what it's about. And you've been very kind having me on. Thank you.
thank you. I want to once again thank Keeper for this incredible, emotional, heart wrenching, and heartwarming interview. Remember, folks, his book is called Helplessness: The Mental Health Challenges Brothers Experience Once We Learn Our Sister Have Been Sexually Abused by Our Parents. You can get that on Amazon. Look in the descriptions of both the audio and video podcasts. I have all of his information, whether it's his website, his YouTube channel, or where you can get the book. His Instagram, all that stuff is down in the details. And I want to take a step back and thank you for riding along with this incredible interview. I don't know that I've interviewed anybody that has a story. I haven't interviewed anybody that has a story like this. I don't know if I have interviewed anybody that has a story this heart wrenching. There have been some people out there that I've interviewed that really have some really heart wrenching stories, but this one from, Keeper's childhood, going back to when he was molested, and then the struggles of just trying to survive in LA. Ice Cube said trying to survive in South Central. I don't know if they were in South Central, but they were in LA, trying to survive, being entertainers. And then at 16, 17 years old, finding out what this huge family secret is and coming to grips with that, and spending the majority of his young adult life feeling that regret and that shame. And then finally coming to grips with it and writing this book, and even have the sisters participate in it and kind of bringing the majority of the siblings back together. This is a really incredible overarching story of pain, tragedy, and then triumph. And I can't stress enough how grateful I am for Keeper to come on the show and tell us about his life, tell us about his struggles, tell us about his triumphs. Anytime I have guests on the show, I'm always trying to open the audience's eyes to something that's a unique perspective, something that they may not know is out there in the world, something that they've heard about, but don't have any firsthand experience with. I feel like the only way that we can grow as human beings are really, really, truly listening to each other and hearing everybody else's unique story. I always give the analogy: two people can walk in the woods. They can walk in the exact same path, in the exact same steps, and experience completely different journeys. And sometimes people don't get what I'm saying, but with each person having different personalities in that journey, in that walk, in that path, even though they're taking the same path and they're in the same footsteps, they may turn left and see a tree. Another person may turn left and see a robin in that tree where the other person didn't see the robin in the tree. It's the details in life that other people see things differently and can explain things differently to us. And we can all learn from it and grow. That's what this podcast is really all about. To hear Keeper's story, and I understand that things like this happen, right? Like there is a history of parents abusing their children, fathers abusing their daughters, mothers abusing their daughters, mothers abusing their sons, fathers abusing their sons, and nephews and nieces, and so on and so on and so on. But I've never heard firsthand an experience like this. And I know throughout the majority of the interview, you guys will have noticed that I had to just take breaks because it was so much overwhelming emotional information that we were consuming in one time that you just had to take a break, catch your breath, because it was so overwhelming and so powerful. And that's the reason why I have this show. I will never stop doing these type of interviews. I will always, always give you a warning beforehand of what's to come. These type of interviews are so very important because if you don't know anybody that's experienced it in your personal life, you can at least come to this show and hear it firsthand from a person that's experienced of a wide variety of different things. And that's what I try to do on this show. And so thank you again for Keeper. Look out for his other books. They're all in his details. So go to his website, go buy Helplessness. That's book 1, book 2, and book 3 are coming out soon. I want to thank you for taking this journey with me. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you watching. And until next time, as always, I'll holla. Whew, that was a hell of a show. Thank you for rocking with us here on Unsolicited Perspectives with Bruce Anthony. Now, before you go, don't forget to follow, subscribe, like, comment, and share our podcast wherever you're listening or watching it to it. Pass it along to your friends. If you enjoy it, that means the people that you rock with will enjoy it also. So share the wealth, share the knowledge, share the noise. And for all those people that say, well, I don't have a YouTube. If you have a Gmail account, you have a YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can actually watch our video podcast. But the real party is on our Patreon page, After Hours Uncensored and Talking Straight-ish. After Hours Uncensored is another show with my sister. And once again, the key word there is uncensored. Those are exclusively on our Patreon page. Jump onto our website at unsolicitedperspectives.com for all things us. That's where you can get all of our audio, video, our blogs, and even buy our merch. And if you're really feeling genuine and want to help us out, you can donate on our donations page. Donations go strictly to improving our software and hardware so we can keep giving you guys good content that you can clearly listen to and that you can clearly see. So any donation would be appreciative. Most importantly, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, for listening and watching and supporting us. And I'll catch you next time. Audi 5000. Peace.